It's always inspiring to hear how challenges are turned into stepping stone for success.
All the prep work before we even really kick off the design. What is it that the client is actually looking for? Who can we talk to? Where in the market can we go to get information about the product?
Outsourcing isn't just about cutting cost. It's about enhancing your capabilities and focusing your internal teams on what they do best.
We use Jira all through development, and the product managers are obviously building things into that.
According to the recent research in 2023, nearly 92% of North American businesses, including those in Canada, are leveraging IT outsourcing. We are thrilled to have James Barr with us today, the founder and CEO of Strata Research Limited. With a robust background at companies like BlackBerry and a knack for innovative product solutions, James brings over 15 years of expertise to the table. Welcome to another episode of the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast, the go-to platform celebrating the unsung heroes of our local economies, small and medium enterprises. I'm your host, SK, and today we are venturing into the dynamic realms of software development and product management. In this episode, we will uncover the strategic advantages of outsourcing product development. Understanding when and how to leverage external expertise can transform business operations, the crucial role of design in software development, exploring how a focus on design enhances user experience and functionality, effective strategies for delivering projects on time and within budget, learning the secrets to maintaining reliability and trustworthiness in competitive markets. Join us as we explore these fascinating topics and gain insights from James' extensive experience. Good afternoon, James. Welcome to Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you very much for having me, SK.
It's always a pleasure to chat with entrepreneurs on Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. Let's start with the journey of an entrepreneur like you. Every successful venture begins with a story. James, can you start by telling us about your journey into software development and what led you to found Strata Research Limited?
Yeah, there's a long version of the story and a short version. I'll try to tell you the medium version of that story. I was a guitar teacher years and years ago. I was doing that for a while, working with a bunch of people who were, various ages from kids to adults. And one of my adults students suggested I maybe get into technology. He was working at Research in Motion at the time, and that's sort of what started my journey in tech.
And which year was that?
That would have been 2008.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a while back. It was right around the time that we launched the Storm device, and things maybe shifted a little bit for RIM at the time. You fast forward about 10 years from there, and I was taking a hiatus between roles when I had an opportunity with a friend of mine who was out in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle, wanted to get into software development. He had a great idea, but he had no access to really the software development industry. And at that point, I had been working as a product manager for, 6 or 7 years. And I knew some people. So we decided to take the plunge and start this thing. And it kind of grew up from there. So it was really one project to begin with, as many, I think, businesses start with. And then we kind of went up.
What is your suggestion or a practical tip for those, who want to move from their full-time job to start their own business?
Yeah, starting in services was the right way to go, because when you're not building a product from scratch, you don't have that lead time, right? So if there's something that you are able to, to provide as a service, a skill or an expertise you have, that's a great place to start, because you can get to revenue in the first month, especially if you can find that first client.
James, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with our listeners. Following on, what were some pivotal moments in the early days of Strata and that have shaped the direction of your company?
There's 3 that come to mind right off the bat. The first was our very first hire. It was a funny kind of bait and switch thing. So with my initial client, I was doing sort of part-time consulting. We decided that needed to pick up, and we wanted to bring on some actual developers. Originally, I was just helping this client hire somebody for Seattle. So we posted this job and we said Seattle or Kitchener or really anywhere in the world. We got a bunch of applicants, and one of the applicants was in Kitchener. So I met with this guy and we kind of said, hey, I know you applied for this job at this company in Seattle, but would you rather work on that project but work for a company here? And luckily enough, he took a risk with us and is still with us to this day. Our first hire is still on the team. That's 5 years ago. The second is, our first 9 months or so in, we really had one project. We were building this thing. We were growing this team. Things were going well, but it's a really risky spot to be in with one customer. We picked up our second real customer about 9 months into the business, this great company out of Guelph called Fill It Forward. And that really taught us a lot about how to kind of scale what we were doing from everybody on one thing to how do we build some process around working on multiple projects at once.
Streamlining everything, right?
Right.
Yeah.
How does our team structure work? We're not just all swarming. So that was a really big shift for us. And then about a year into that, COVID. So that taught us a lot about how we really partner with our customers. Through that COVID era, we did a lot of work with customers. Some cases we were, technically losing money, but we were all losing money. So we just said, let's just invest in each other. It really taught us a lot about the sort of partnership side of things. And if you pick the right people to work with,
Right.
those relationships go a long way.
Right. I think COVID has taught a lot about digital transformation to a lot of business owners, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There was quite a surge of that, just as we were coming out of pandemic and everyone's figuring out how to use Zoom, and it was a very heavy period, I'd say, 2021, 2022, as businesses started to do that.
Yeah. James, it's always inspiring to hear how challenges are turned into stepping stone for success. Now, discussing about outsourcing product development, like outsourcing can be a strategic move for many businesses. Why do you believe outsourcing product development is beneficial, and under what circumstances should a company consider this option?
Yeah, it's, having an in-house team is great. Building your own product team is obviously the ideal situation if that's what you're trying to do, but it also comes with a lot of work. There's cross-functional roles. It's not as easy as just hiring one person out of college and starting to build stuff. So my advice to any business out there who's thinking about the outsourcing piece, I think it really makes sense when it's not part of your core business model. If your model is building software, then build software. But if your model is something else and the software is an enabler of value delivery for you, then that might be a good place to outsource. Another reason is you just can't or don't have the time to build that team, to cross all the functions. And I think maybe we'll talk a bit about those functions today. So that's the second piece of it. And maybe the third is you need expertise, but you don't need that expertise every day, all year round. You need it in bursts.
Not on a full-time basis. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. So, if you're looking to outsource, I think the real thing to look at then is, do you have an idea of something that you're looking to bring to market and you think there's a path to that product market fit? Do you recognize that it's going to take work up front to get that thing out the door, and that work typically means budget as well? And do you want to have a predictable, you want to deliver value for the dollars you put in? I think when you bring on your own team, part of the value you're delivering is team potential. But when you outsource, you want really deliberate value in the product that you're bringing to market.
And James, a lot of business owners, they have the option, a lot of options for outsourcing the services, like in the market available when we're talking about today's environment, outsourcing environment. What do you suggest, when any business selecting an outsourcing organization or a company, what are the key things they should be looking for?
Yeah, it's a very, it's a wide market, and there are a lot of options out there, and there are expensive options and there are cheap options, and we tend to fall more to the expensive side. But I think, what you want to see if you're really looking for control over your time and control over your budget, you want to work with a team that is going to put in the level of detail up front, really properly plan out your project and give you a firm estimate and stand by that estimate. I think that's super important. And you want a team that's cross-functional. I said it already, but I'll say it again. Just hiring development is a way to get code written, but it's not necessarily the way to be sure that what you want to have at the end of all that code writing is the thing that you get.
What is the easiest way to get connected with you if any of our audience is interested in learning more and partnering with your organization?
So you can find us at strataresearch.ca on the web, or you could email us at nudge@strataresearch.ca, and it's strata with a T.
Thank you. According to the recent research in 2023, nearly 92% of North American businesses, including those in Canada, are leveraging IT outsourcing, highlighting its crucial role in boosting operational efficiencies and accessing specialized tech services. How does Strata ensure alignment with client goals and
Mhm.
expectations when taking an outsourced project?
Yeah, it's really about the structure, and we have three core functions to our business that let us make sure we get things right. It's the design piece first, and we'll talk about design a little bit, but the design piece really is the research into what we're trying to do for what users or what value delivery. So design is the strategy. There's product, which is the specifications, trying to facilitate the architecture and thinking about all the details and what do we say no to. So the product is really the execution. And then there's the development, which if you get the strategy and you get the execution plan right, your developers then are actually free to think of the things that often can get overlooked if you overpromise. So things like security, privacy, and really solving the problem right when they
Right.
have that freedom.
James, I believe understanding when and how to outsource can indeed transform a business operational dynamic. Let's take a moment to reflect on the idea of outsourcing that James brought up. For all the entrepreneurs listening, consider how outsourcing could elevate your business. Are there functions within your operations that could be handled more efficiently by external experts? Outsourcing isn't just about cutting cost. It's about enhancing your capabilities and focusing your internal teams on what they do best. Think about one area in your business where outsourcing might bring a strategic advantage. So now let's discuss the important, as you mentioned, design. Let's
Mhm.
discuss the importance of design in software development. Design plays a critical role in the success of software products. Can you elaborate on why you call a design the golden touch in software development?
Yeah, it's crucial, and I've seen this again and again. I've been on projects without design. I've been on projects with, mediocre design, or maybe just inexperienced. And I've seen projects where you've got a designer who really knows and what they're doing and is honed in on the actual process. Design is the strategy, and maybe to define it a little further from Strata's perspective, design is, it's user research, it's user experience design or thinking about how things flow, it's the UI and interaction design, and then it's the prototyping as well. So when you look across that whole spectrum of what happens, designers are really trying to understand what the user and the end market is looking for. They're trying to get the flows right. They're building the UI and trying to get the psychological piece right so that users can understand, it's intuitive. And then they're taking all of that back and doing validation just on the designs before any development, starts. And I think, I'm a victim of this or guilty of this myself as a former product manager. It's always kind of the impulse to just do, right? Let's get some developers and let's just do
Do it.
this thing.
Right.
But when you do the design first, you save so much time down the road. And when you don't have that design thoroughly thought through, you end up in the death by a thousand paper cuts kind of thing where halfway through the project, you're tweaking lines of text or moving this over here, and it just goes on forever. It drags.
Right. And I think design changes the perception, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way the people look at any product or service, even for the
Yep.
applications, like design
Yes.
is very, very important. Following on that, could you share an example where
Mhm.
Strata's focus on design made a significant difference to a project?
Oh yeah, I've got probably a couple of these. One of them is a large project we worked on for a company that's building software for researchers in a very technical field. So these researchers needed a really intuitive interface, but that had really complex functionality under the hood. And it had to make it work for them. So they didn't have to feel like they were using software. They needed to feel like they were just doing their jobs. But on the other side of it, the developers had to understand what these researchers are doing and how they're going to use this software. So we brought design in first on that project. I think we spent 4 months on the design phase itself. But the result of that was then we were able to, in less than 6 months, build the software from end to end and get it to launch. And it was a huge impact. I've seen on the flip side, we've had projects where just no design or the design was sort of surface level where the design is here's some pictures of the happy path, almost it's the Instagram school of design where it's the best picture you've got. This is what it'll look like. but it only describes the best case scenario. It doesn't describe the part before the picture where your makeup wasn't done or after the picture. And in those cases, what happens every time is the project goes beyond schedule. Maybe the budget doesn't blow up, but somebody's not happy. And at the end of it, no one's really ecstatic with the result. Everyone's just happy that there was a finish line. So yeah, I mean, that's just a couple examples for you.
Yeah, as you mentioned, and like everyone knows, every entrepreneur is busy in running their own business. Are there any any resources you suggest to entrepreneurs when it comes to designing, if they have any application in mind, and how they can find some resources when it comes to designing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, my advice is to start with, if you're thinking visually, tools like Figma. Figma has a great array of resources that you can use in order to learn how to work with the program, and it lets you go right from sort of the concept of components all the way through to prototyping. That's a great one when it comes to user interface interaction type design. But when you're thinking a little further upstream and you're trying to do things like story mapping or story flows, user flows, tools like Miro are really good for sort of the brainstorming aspect where you can block things out and figure out what's happening. Those are a couple good places to start, and both of those tools have really good support levels of knowledge base articles.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing those resources. I believe after listening to your thoughts, design is not just about aesthetics, but functionality and user experience is crucial for product success.
100%. It's the last piece, the last element is kind of the visual that goes on top. And that part is important because there is a psychology to what you see and how you experience a space, like this room itself, right? It's laid out in such a way that it feels nice and comfortable. And but before all of that, it's the function. So just like in this room, there's all sorts of functional stuff that without these microphones that no one can see here, we wouldn't be recording this podcast in quite as nice a way. And that is also the user experience piece of design.
As we discuss the golden touch of design in software development, I want to connect with all our listeners on this creative aspect. How much emphasis do you place on the design and user experience of your product or services? Good designs goes beyond aesthetics. It's about making your product intuitive and meeting customers' needs. Sometimes a fresh design perspective is all it takes to revitalize a product and boost user engagement. Thank you for tuning in to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. We are going to take a quick break. Stay with us, and we will be right back with more insights and stories from the heart of a small business.
You dreamt big. You made the leap. You and your "we're not stopping at small" business. Doesn't matter you've never done it before. You unlock those problems. You adapt to change. You learn to evolve. You're pioneers in challenging times, finding your own frontiers. Wherever you e-commerce, UPS is with you. So nothing is going to hold you back.
Nope.
Constant Contact delivers the marketing tools your small business needs to keep up, excel, and grow. Constant Contact, helping the small stand tall.
Welcome back to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. Let's continue our journey into inspiring small business world, full of innovation and passion. Let's discuss about the project management. Effective project management often goes unnoticed yet remains very critical. You have mentioned that product managers are the secret sauce in building software. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, it's such a, first off, the wording is always so tricky because product managers and project managers sort of overlap, but they're sort of different. So maybe I'll define how we look at product managers, and then we can talk about the secret sauce piece, which, product management at Strata is both the, organizing everybody to get things done, but it's also really crucially, it's a role that understands the product. So, what comes out of design gives us all a really good starting point on which to align around what the user needs and how this should look and feel and work and function. The product managers have to understand that and then take it to the next level of detail so that they can actually execute on the strategy. And so that involves saying no to things. It involves really ruthlessly prioritizing what actually has to happen and what's a nice to have. And if we have time, maybe we'll get to it. And then translating that into really detailed, what is the done criteria? As a developer, if I'm going to get handed a task to do, I don't want to just know, ideally it should do X, Y, Z, but also what are the check boxes I have to hit to be truly done this thing? And I mean, when you spend the time to get that right, that empowers developers to really put their minds to the problems they're solving. And it just allows the whole, if development's the engine, it allows that engine to go, finely tuned. I guess that's sort of how product management really helps you get to that place where everything runs smoothly.
Right. And how Gen AI is aiding the product development managers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gen AI is a great tool. That's what it's, it's not the product, but it is a thing that helps us get to where we need to get. So when we are looking for answers to things, Gen AI to me right now, I lived through the first era of Google. And when Google came along, it was like, wow, I can actually find things on the internet now. It's not this weird magic alchemy thing. Gen AI, I feel like, is like Google squared. It's really helps us get to the answers of things so much faster. And on the product management side, it's really good at helping with the structure of things. So it's another valuable tool kind of in the toolbox.
Right. And James, how does Strata empowers its product managers to ensure they contribute effectively to project outcomes?
Yeah, there's two kind of main things. It's the people, first of all. We have great people on our team who are, they understand products. They've come from backgrounds that were product management or product adjacent. They have QA experience or support experience, so they understand that how do products fall down and how do we fix them, or how do we prevent that from even happening? And they're people who take accountability for the products that they are running. So that's a real key piece. If you have the right people, it's so much easier. The second is sort of the process and tooling. We don't go heavy on process, but we do have the processes that we need that we have found worked. Things like onboarding checklists. Like if I'm the sales guy, which I guess I am, when I bring a new client into the business, my job is to fill out the forms I have to fill out to make sure that my product managers have what they need to get started, and they're allowed to tell me no until I get that done. And likewise, as they go through the process of building something, they're regularly reporting out with status reports where they've got details on what's happening and why, what decisions were made. They've got feature checklists that go both into the development side, but also back to the client to make sure the client sees the feature and signs off. And so it's the combination of the people and the process and tools that really makes it come together.
Okay, James, can you suggest any tools for other product managers?
I mean, the number one that probably everybody has used at some point is Jira, or sort of the Atlassian suite. We use Jira all through development, and the product managers are obviously building things into that. But then beyond that, kind of outside of the Jira space, we're mostly using Google Docs, and it's Google Docs and spreadsheets. Yeah.
I think the role of a product manager is indeed multifaceted and pivotal in bridging the gap between development and successful deployment. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on their important role. Before we continue, let's pause and think about the role of a product management that James highlighted as the secret sauce of software development. To all our business owners and managers out there, how are you integrating product management into your development processes? A strong product manager can align your business strategy with customer needs and technological capabilities, steering projects to success. Now, moving on, let's discuss about delivery, delivering the product on time and on a limited budget.
Mm-hmm.
Staying on schedule and within budget is a perennial challenge. What are some of the secrets to delivering projects on time within a budget that you have discovered at Strata?
Yeah, first off, it's the level of detail that you go to. So, starting with all the prep work before we even really kick off the design. What is it that the client is actually looking for? Who can we talk to? Where in the market can we go to get information about the product? And so it's that piece to start. Then it's the design piece. How do we make sure that we have designed this through the user's eyes so we know what really needs to happen and what's less important? And then it's about prioritization. As we get into the specifications, the architecture, and the order of operations in what we build, and it kind of falls into the product manager's court, that's where we're thinking about really what are the true absolute essentials in this product? What are the really important pieces? And then what are the nice to haves? And then finally, as the thing gets rolling, it's about communication. If we get the communication right, we're constantly keeping customers informed of what's happening. We're talking about new information as it comes up. If there's some sort of change in scope, the way we tend to work on it is if this is coming up in scope, what's going down? It's all about trade-offs. No matter whether you're building software or just living your life, there's only so much time in a day. And so if something comes up that's important, something else has to necessarily fall. And I think the real key is being deliberate about that instead of accidental. We're going to make everything the top priority. Well, then something's going to fall out and you don't know what. But if you can be deliberate and clear about what the trade-offs are and how they affect user value in the end, then you can make wise choices. You can stay on budget, stay on time, and everybody, including the client, knows what's been traded and why, and is happy about it.
Right. Even after streamlining everything, there might be times where a delivery gets delayed. How does Strata handle, unexpected hurdles that might affect project timelines or cost?
Mm-hmm. The prioritization is a big key. Communication early, because bad news ages poorly. So you get on top of it as soon as you can. And ultimately, if there's a delay and if it's our fault, then it's on us and we cover it and we just get it done and we communicate every step of the way. If it's something beyond anyone's control, then we collaborate with our clients to figure out how we're going to do. Are we going to cut some scope? Are we going to change the way we approach things? Are we just going to all agree to take an extra week to get this other thing out because no one was aware? We figure it out as a team.
Okay. And what do you suggest to any of our listeners, sometimes if they get delayed, how they can communicate with the client and get it delivered on, after time?
So I'll say again, bad news ages poorly. So the sooner you can get a message out, the better. But before you say, I've got bad news, think about what the outcome of this is and what are the choices that can be made. It doesn't have to be that you solve the problem, but if you can lay it out for your client in a way that is clear, here's option A, here's option B, these are the advantages and drawbacks of A, the advantages and drawbacks of B. Let them make a clear choice as to what they're trading. Most clients, and every client I've worked with in that kind of a scenario, are very happy that you're coming to them early and then they get the choice of how to solve this problem.
I think it's, as you said, it's very, very important to have a clear communication to make things work out. James, I believe these strategies that you just mentioned are very crucial for any business looking to maintain reliability and, trustworthiness in competitive market. Before we conclude, James, could you share a piece of advice for our listeners who are navigating their own software development challenges?
Yeah. The most important thing that I have seen time and time again is it's the work you put in up front on any project, feature, whole product, whatever it is. You put that work in up front, even down to the smallest thing. Don't think that if you've got something small to do, maybe it's a 2-week, 3-week project, and it seems like, we can just get started on this one. It's so small. We know what it is. Put the time in up front, even when it feels like a loss leader, because every single time that is going to save you time down the road.
Thank you so much for sharing your advice. Is there anything else you would like to add?
I think that's it, but I just want to say thank you very much for inviting me out today to talk. It's been great to meet you and the team, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you so much. It was a great pleasure hosting you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That wraps up today's deep dive into the crucial elements of strategic outsourcing, the integral role of design in software development, and the key to keeping projects on track within budget. A huge thank to our exclusive partners for their unwavering support. RBC, UPS, Zero, Constant Contact, and ISG group of hotels. Don't miss out. Subscribe to the Canadian SME Small Business Magazine at canadiansme.ca for more empowering insights. Also, check out our YouTube channel to catch all our episodes and more. Drop us a comment if there is a trending topic or a particular challenge in the small business world you want us to explore. Your input helps us make each episode more relevant and impactful for you. Thanks for tuning in, and remember to support and empower your local businesses. See you next time on the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast.